Thank you for coming. I'm Councillor Pat Healy and I will be chairing this hearing today. I'm joined by my fellow councillors who will introduce themselves.
It's not on. I'm Judith Blakeman, Councillor Martindale Ward.
Good morning. I'm Janet Evans, Councillor for Courtfield Ward.
Could I ask, I have no declarations of interest in this case to declare. Could I ask my fellow councillors to do the same?
I have no declarations.
I've been involved in hospitality, but I have no declarations.
Thank you. Also with us today, and I'd like to ask you to confirm that you're here, are for the applicants Alan Thomas.
Yes, Jan.
Thank you. Alessandra Bransford Matthews. Thank you. Emily Zetterberg. Thank you very much. And for the objectors, Andrea Sharp and Jenny Mills. Thank you. What about the rest of you? Governance and I haven't got a list. Sorry. Yes, I do.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Lamazerio. I'm going to be the legal officer advising the committee today.
And Paul Phelan. Is Paul here? Oh, sorry. Okay.
There's more on the other page.
Not on my... Oh, yes, there is. Sorry. Dupog. From governance, Anne Wright.
Yes, Chairman, I'm here.
Gareth Ebenezer. And Emma Taylor. Thank you very much.
And also Madam Yasmin.
Sorry, you're...
She's not on the list.
She's not on this, but you're all very welcome. At the start, where are we? Yes, you should all have a sheet giving the procedure, but we'll go through it very quickly anyway. Each party will have up to 10 minutes to present their case and will then be subject to questioning from the committee and from the opposite side. At the end of the proceedings, there is no summing up. We will simply end the hearing and go away and make a decision. And I'd like to start with Mr. Phelan introducing the application, please.
Can we just check we've gone live?
Thank you, Chair.
Recorded. Sorry, Mr. Phelan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. Today's application has been submitted by Walden Street LLP for the grant of a premises licence at basement and ground floor, 21 to 23 Walden Street, London, SW3 2HX. The applicant originally sought on sales of alcohol until 2200 hours, Monday to Sunday. However, this was reduced to 21:30, Monday to Sunday on the 23rd of November 2021. The following is a summary of the amended application. The sale by retail of alcohol on the premises from 11:30 a.m. until 21:30 Monday to Friday, and from 9 a.m. until 21:30 Saturday and Sunday. Sales of alcohol off the premises from 11:30 a.m. until 2200 hours Monday to Friday, and again from 9 a.m. until 2200 hours Saturday and Sunday. A full copy of the application can be found at Appendix A on pages 11 to 22 of today's report, with the supporting plan attached at Appendix B on pages 24. I can confirm that this application did not attract a representation from any of the responsible authorities. During the consultation process, the licensing team received a total of 15 valid representations which opposed this application. This includes 2 representations from residents' associations, namely the Milner Street Residents Association and the Walton Street Residents Association. A summary of these representations can be found on pages 4 to 9, with copies attached at Appendix C on pages 25 to 52 of the main bundle. Council records indicate that the premises received no noise complaints over the preceding 24 months. Council records also indicate that no temporary event notices have been submitted within the preceding 24 months. That concludes the summary of this application. I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask the applicants to present their case. You have up to 10 minutes.
Chair, thank you. We understand are sympathetic to the representations that are being made. It's the fear of the unknown which is so common in licensing. There is nothing to fear here, we say. There is an understandable perception that the premises could be sold or possibly turned into a bar. There are two reasons that can't and won't happen. The first reason is that we have owned the premises. We own the freehold or the long lease. We own the freehold. We've owned it since 1996. It's a family business. And the family have a flat behind the premises, so it wouldn't be in their interest to sell it on in any event. The reason it can't turn into a bar or anything else is because of the conditions that we have proffered on the application. The very modest opening hours, very modest compared to standards locally, and indeed the conditions that alcohol can only be sold on the premises to persons seated taking a table meal. And there are some limited off-sales which I'll come back to later. So this is, with respect, Chair, a very heavily conditioned and a very modest application. We've submitted a full bundle of supplementary documents, including a management plan, which includes a dispersal policy, and you've seen the photographs of the premises, the tables and chairs licence, which is in force. It said it's not, it is in force. And also the menus. So, and usually, rather than you hearing from me for the full 10 minutes, I'm actually going to let you hear from the most important person, who's the owner of the business, Alessandra. Alessandra, just a few questions from me. You've run, the family's owned the property since '96.
Yep.
Oh, could you turn your microphone on, please? It's an eatery. Your food-led premises. Can you just tell the committee very briefly about the sort of food that you sell, the ethos of the business?
Absolutely, yeah. We always, as a family, have been passionate about good quality food, healthy food. We want seasonal British food, and just to bring something fresh and new and quality to the community. And that is something we've always been passionate about. As a family, we've been in hospitality since 1994. So it's something operationally we've been very familiar with, but this was something I personally feel very passionate about, and as a family we've grown a lot more passionate about.
And you've actually been running the premises in this way for 3 years, obviously not selling alcohol, but for
4 years, yeah. So
4 years.
November 2017 we opened.
And tell us about your customers. Where do they come from? Who are they, etc.?
They're well, I'll let Emily. Can I let Emily elaborate on that?
Mike?
Yeah, mainly it is the local residents in the area, also local businesses. We have a lot of people coming from the Knightsbridge School, so teachers and parents alike. Most, I would say, between 30 years old and 60 years old. We have quite a few of elderly residents coming in as well.
And why? I suppose the question everyone wants answered is, why do you want to sell alcohol? Do you want to deal with that?
Yeah,
Okay, Emily.
Of course. Well, it has been a growing number of requests actually from our regulars and our customers who have been, wanting to come in for an afternoon tea with a glass of champagne or for a brunch with a glass of prosecco, and we are proposing to launch an evening service where we'd continue with the same line of food, and as you probably know, to operate a restaurant for evenings in London, it would be nice to be able to serve some wine with the food. And what we are proposing is a very small selection of wines, organic wines, mostly local, and we're looking to supplement that with some champagne for our afternoon tea offerings.
And alcohol, just to be absolutely clear, alcohol can only be sold with food consumption on the premises.
That's correct, yeah.
We'll come back to ourselves later.
Obviously, only with table service as well, so only for customers seated who are eating a substantial meal.
You've got a small outside seating area that's got a tables and chairs licence.
Yeah.
I know it's not being conditioned, but you've got roughly 55 to 60 covers both inside and out. The impact of COVID, very briefly, I don't wish to remind you of it, but how's it been?
Well, naturally, with 3 national lockdowns, we have suffered, and we were forced to close for 7 months in 2020, and then operated for takeaway only for 4 months in 2021, so last year. So revenue was down to 30% of our normal takings for most of 2020, and then up to about a level of 60% in last year. So naturally, yeah, we've definitely struggled.
I should have introduced you. You're the general manager,
general manager, yeah.
And the designated premises supervisor?
Yes, that is our head chef. Yeah.
Yes. Complaints. It's been said that there have been some complaints about the premises. You've been there for how long?
I've been there for 3 years.
So there was a complaint, I believe, about the A board, but in terms of complaints about the running of the premises, have you received any?
I haven't received any apart from that.
Finally, you had pre-application advice from the council,
That's right.
which
Yep.
I think it's fair to say was supportive of your proposals.
Yeah, certainly, where we obviously discussed the conditions that we've,
And the environmental health haven't made a representation.
that's right.
Before you submitted the application, you wrote to local residents.
We did, yes. Before we applied, so a few weeks before we submitted the application, we sent a letter to the local residents. And after that, with the representations made, we followed up with another letter in December. And I provided my personal contact details as well. If there was anyone who wanted to come by and discuss the issues personally with me, didn't receive any communication so far. But
Thank you. Chair, I would very briefly just like to go through the representations, if you can bear with me, if I can find the page. Summarising the, how long have I got left? A couple of minutes? The concerns are as follows. I'm going to be brief. The concern is that this would be a licence granted in, I'm referring to the applicant's, the objector's subsequent bundle. The concern that if granted in perpetuity, it could become a problem premises with drunken, drugged teenagers until 1 a.m. I think I've covered that point already. We're only applying for a licence until 9:30 p.m. So if anyone ever did want to apply, which it's not going to be us, they of course would have to make an application. There's no further need for a licence is one of the other grounds. Need, of course, isn't a licensing objective. And in terms of your policy, this isn't in a cumulative impact area. And in fact, in terms of your policy, this is completely within it, both in terms of hours and the proposals to fully support the licensing objectives. You'll see that in all the conditions that we've proposed. I've dealt with the concern that it will be a bar. There is no vertical drinking. There can't be by virtue of the conditions. You'll see that the tables and chairs licence is in place. There have been no complaints. I think your environmental health officer also confirmed that. I think I saw that in the report. There are a couple of conditions, and perhaps once we've heard from the interested parties, we can go through the conditions, but we've just got a couple of tweaks that we would like to make to the conditions, and I think they probably do too. So I can either deal with that now or after you've heard with the interested parties.
We will be going over the conditions later in the proceedings, so you don't need to do it now.
I'll come back to the conditions later then during the discussion. Chair, that's the application.
Thank you very much. Could I ask one question before I invite my colleagues to? Can you explain to us why you're seeking longer opening hours for Saturday and Sunday mornings?
Yes, so naturally our brunch service starts at 9 a.m. So we have plenty of, say, you're hosting a birthday party or you're wanting to have a brunch. And as we know in London, you might want to have that with either a mimosa or a Bloody Mary. So it's hard for us to say that customers arriving before others are allowed and some are not. So it would be natural to attach that to when we're serving food.
Do you expect that to be the exception rather than the rule?
In terms of...
In terms of how many people will take you up on that offer?
Yeah, probably exception, yeah.
In fact, at one point, but it's in the same genre as us. In terms of the expectation as to how much alcohol you'll sell, presumably this is going to be a very small and ancillary part of your business. Your main offer still remains the service of food.
Yeah, correct.
And it's a very limited range of alcohol that you have.
Yeah, it would be a small selection of, as we said, organic wines.
The point of my question was really to throw light on why, for just 2 days of the week, at the weekend, you want an earlier start when you're not seeking that for the weekdays.
Chair, as Emily said, people are more likely to want to have a beverage such as a mimosa or a champagne cocktail at the weekends rather than during the week. So rather than ask for it throughout the week, Monday to Sunday, we obviously don't wish to avail ourselves of it during the week, but from customer feedback and from knowing other local businesses, it is something that customers may want to ask for from 9 a.m. But we do consider that the exception rather than be the rule. I can promise you that if you to attend this premises in a few months, you won't see bottles of champagne being kicked around the floor. It's just not that sort of place. But they would like that flexibility if you were so minded to give it.
Thank you for that. Could I ask my colleagues if they have any questions? Councillor Blakeman.
Yeah, you did mention this, but it was rather swift. Can you confirm for the benefit of the objectors that there will be no vertical drinking?
There will be no vertical drinking. It's an important point. I'm glad you asked it again. It's worth repeating.
Councillor Evans.
Yes. Thank you for your presentation. Can you tell us, excuse me, how many people will be working at all times, and that you can show through that it will be supervised, who will be outside, etc.?
Yeah, certainly. We'll have 3 front of house staff, as we do currently as well, and naturally a chef in the kitchen as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal, do you have any questions?
No questions from me, thank you.
Would the objectors like to ask the applicants any questions? And bear in mind, this is a question period. You will have your own opportunity to present your cases later on.
There we go. Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us here today. The big question I've got is, why do people need to drink at 9 till 11 in the morning at weekends? And the reason I ask that is, those of us who've lived in the area for 15, 20, 40 years, as residents have in this area, know perfectly well at weekends there is no footfall first thing in the morning. There's absolutely no footfall. The great joke is, you go out, you walk the dogs, you go to the shops, and you come home by 11 o'clock. So I don't quite understand why we're looking at having to have alcohol served before 11 o'clock in the morning.
I'm more happy to answer. I don't wish to sound like the Prime Minister and say I refer to my earlier answer, but but just to repeat what I said earlier, this is very much an ancillary and occasional offer. We don't expect that the limited amount of people, a small amount of customers will have, for example, on Saturday morning, will all be drinking alcohol. But if somebody wanted to they might have taken a week off work. They might have had a hard week at the office, and they might think, well, I would like a mimosa with my breakfast. It is simply that, and it was always with food. So if somebody's having a mimosa at breakfast at 9:30, 10 o'clock on Saturday or Sunday morning, it has to be with a full table meal. So the answer to the question is that there is occasional demand for it. We don't anticipate that it will draw in flocks of people just coming for that. Yeah, you're right. There are other places around that offer. We're not going to do presumably we're not going to do a bottomless brunch or anything like that. No.
Absolutely not. No.
Hopefully now, of course, when the travel restrictions have stopped, we will have people coming from hotels and locals who might be catching an early flight and wanting to have a breakfast with, their mum and celebrating with a glass of mimosa or a Prosecco glass if it's just before 11. So to limit that would be a shame. It would be offered with a normal brunch menu. That was the idea.
And no bottomless brunches?
Definitely not, no.
Okay.
Yes, please.
May I don't have a question for you, but I'm going to cover this point in my objection.
Please, would you speak into the microphone so that we can all hear you? Thank you. Speak into the microphone.
Sorry, I can't hear the question.
You can. It is flexible. You can move it towards you.
Can you hear me better now?
That's better.
Okay, I apologise. I am going to raise this point in my objection, so I don't actually have any questions for you, but if I may, I would like to raise this as part of my objection.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Which one of you wishes to go first?
I think Jenny should go first, if that's all right.
Right.
Are you all right?
Yes. First of all, can I apologise? Firstly, I'm suffering from long COVID, which I've had for nearly 2 years. I also have an eye infection and I need a knee replacement, a second knee replacement. So I'm feeling a bit like an old crock here. We would have had very many more residents here today, but dare I say it, we're an ageing population in Walton Street, certainly, and I think probably also in Mizaraland. And we are all basically trying to look after our health. When Professor Sir John Bell ends up with a second bout of COVID, having been treble jabbed, and says on the radio that he was feeling pretty grim, I think we all have to listen to that sort of advice. Anyway, I report back to 200 households. Now that's not 200 members, individual members, but 200 households. My colleague from Misara does the same. So we are accountable to our members. We are local voters and we're also local taxpayers. Council taxpayers and higher rate taxpayers, and we would like to voice our concerns and we'd like them to be taken into account. There is a history of problems in Walton Street. We've encountered historic licences. We had 2 lovely restaurants in the street, Brown's and can't remember the other name, Walton's. Yes, Turner's. And they then turned into totally different enterprises. Once you end up with granting a licence, it is going to be there forever. Now, I understand that the families say this is not their ethos. I understand that the family also own most of the terrace, running from the current premises in Greenspears right up to Scalini's. But we have encountered difficulties in the past, and the only way we can actually hold premises to account is through a police review, as I understand it. I'm very happy to be corrected on that. But that is what happened over Jack's, and we have encountered that as a difficulty. The commercial end of the street is one thing, but they have consistent noise and nuisance issues, and we know that that continues today. and we know that the licensing and noise and nuisance team have had to take action. Greenspears is in the middle of a residential part of the street. The houses opposite have children's bedrooms right opposite this particular set of premises. They happen to be, dare I say it, single bedrooms, most of them, and therefore they tend to have children living in them. And so small children will be disturbed by any noise and nuisance. And frankly, I think that is unreasonable. We have all lost friends and residents from the street because of noise and nuisance in the past. And it was of great concern to us. We've lost, as I say, friends and families and, good residents. I noticed that Tim Coleridge's objection only referred to Tim, and it did not refer to Tim Coleridge, who was one of our former ward councillors and who stood up with me when we had to go before the licensing committee over the police review. And he has shown great concern, hence his objection. Now, I still do not understand why a deli takeaway, which is what the authorised planning permission is for, has to have a licence, and certainly why it needs an alcohol licence until late in the evening, when, as I know, because I live right opposite, they close at 4:30 every day. I mean, the lights are turned out. They start cleaning at 4 o'clock, and the lights are turned out at 4:30. So that is a question. I would also make the point that I have never received, as chair of the Walton Street Residents Association, I don't think my colleague here from Misara has ever received notification of this, and a letter from Greenspears saying what they were proposing. So consultation is not something that's happened. I know none of the residents who live in Walton Street have had the same. So, I have to question that. Frankly, I regard this as a guise for a change of use from a takeaway deli, which is basically what we have in La Picena, also owned by the same freeholder and the family. I regard it as a change of use from E1 to E2 category. I know this is a planning issue, but we have not had a planning application for it. It's essentially a nice backdoor way to turn it into a restaurant and therefore increase the value of the leasehold, which is one thing, but frankly, residents aren't very happy about it. Can I address the question of the pavement area? I did a land registry search, and I'm sure that the council has also done a land registry search. The basement area is designated as something that the leaseholders have taken into account because it is their sole use. You can't get to the basement area other than through the premises. That's fine. But the ground floor is part of the highway. And when they say there are no objections, we objected very strongly as an association to the use and the grant of a pavement cafe. We recognised that it was something that, due to the pandemic, that one had to listen to and understand, but it is not something that continues. The legislation expires on September 22nd, 2022, September 22. If you grant a licence for alcohol to be served outside on the pavement area, it cannot then be withdrawn, as we understand it. And it creates a tremendously bad precedent for this particular area. The street is not wide, the pavements are not wide, and we are therefore very concerned. I mean, frankly, it's difficult to walk past the tables and chairs at the moment, and certainly now they're placed facing outwards as opposed to facing inwards, without breathing in other people's concerns and possible germs. Can I distinguish this with the enterprise, which I think the applicants will want to draw a comparison with? The enterprise, which is a few doors down the road, actually own the premises and the pavement outside. It is actually designated to them under a land registry search. That is quite different to actually putting tables and chairs outside just under a license. I would urge the committee to refuse the application for the license. If you are minded to grant it, conditions should be that no alcohol is served on the pavement at any time of the day, because this will create a precedent which will then mean that in future people can come out of what might become a bar and drink outside. It will also create a precedent which will extend to neighbouring properties, and that is unacceptable to us. We certainly disagree with the extension of hours. We don't understand why alcohol should be served before 12 o'clock on a Saturday, Sunday morning. I'm sorry, it's a very weak excuse to say somebody needs a mimosa when they come in on a Saturday and Sunday. It's ridiculous. There's nobody in there on a Saturday and Sunday before 12. It's a very small number. We also would like to see that there is a requirement that there is a main meal, not just a sandwich. And or a takeaway.
I think you've taken more than 10 minutes, so could I ask...
Absolutely.
Could I ask Andrea Sharp to present her case, please? We'll take questions after the second objector.
Thank you for... Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
You have up to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I'm here representing the Milner Street Area Residents Association we call Mizara. We have 230 households as members and represent the streets off Milner Street, including Hasker Street, Ovington Street, First Street and Lennox Gardens Mews. Greenspears is located on the corner of Hasker Street and Walton Street. Hasker Street is an extremely quiet one-way street and it is completely residential. We contacted our members in Hasker Street as they were most impacted by the addition of a licence at Greenspears, and we suggested certain conditions. We did not recommend refusing it, but we felt that we could put conditions that would mitigate what was going to be an increase in noise and nuisance as a result of increased operating hours and the sale of alcohol. Most of our members agreed with the conditions. There were a couple who felt there were no conditions that would make it acceptable to have an alcohol licence. Nevertheless, we put in our representation, we asked for 8 conditions around the licence application, and we were very pleased that the applicant accepted 6 of them. So in short, I have really a short speech, which will be to cover the 2 conditions that were not accepted by the applicant. But we appreciate that they did review our representations and others, and they included 6 of them. The 2 conditions that were not accepted, and we've briefly discussed it with the applicant, and that is around weekend trading hours for the sale of alcohol. We think 9 o'clock in the morning is too early. Residents, there will be an increase in noise and nuisance as a result of the hours and sale of alcohol. We are sure of that. But we do not think it's reasonable to be serving alcohol from 9 o'clock. We suggest it should be the same as Monday to Friday, which is 11:30 in the morning. We consider that a very important point, and we appreciate you've made some representations on that earlier. The second point, which I'd like to make, relates to rubbish. We put in our representation that we would like rubbish not to be put out or collected after 9 o'clock in the evening. There will be a lot more rubbish with the extended opening hours and the sale of alcohol, as there will be bottles, cans. This is actually quite a noisy activity, and Hasker Street is a very quiet street. So we had requested that this be done before 9 o'clock in the evening, not 11 o'clock in the evening. That was not accepted by the applicant. I'm not sure why that was not accepted, but so that was our second point. The third point is on deliveries. I don't know whether we should be addressing the new proposed conditions, but that changes deliveries.
Could I just say that we will have a session going through all of the conditions which have been circulated to you.
Sorry, should I comment on them now? Yes, should I comment on them now?
I'm suggesting that you wait until we go through all the conditions.
So will we have the opportunity to speak then?
I'm sorry, say again?
Will we have the opportunity to speak about the new conditions?
Well, you can use your time now, but we will have a session on the conditions at a later stage.
Okay, well, I suppose I have one main concern, and that relates to deliveries. Deliveries can be also a very noisy activity, and it is now suggested or recommended that deliveries under point 25, that instead of 8 o'clock in the evening, it's suggested 11 o'clock in the evening. And my point is it should stay at 8 o'clock in the evening. And so in summary, our main point is the weekend trading hours and the fact that Hasker Street is an extremely quiet street, and people do enjoy a little bit of quiet on Saturday and Sunday morning, and we think it is not unreasonable to request that the sale of alcohol start at 11:30, the same time as Monday to Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The committee will now ask questions. I'd like to start by asking Jenny Mills about her objection. You spent quite a lot of time talking about a different premises. Have you ever had any cause to complain about the premises we're discussing today?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I've actually gone across and raised the matter on a number of occasions, because the deliveries, picking up on my colleagues' comments, the deliveries sometimes in the morning are so noisy. They are so noisy, and they're before 8 o'clock. And I've spoken with not just the premises, but also with the delivery people, who are perfectly nice.
But you haven't complained to the council licensing department about these matters?
Dare I say it, we've given up complaining to the council, because the last time we had a major complaint in the street, which did not relate to this particular premise, there were 3 police cars in attendance because there was such a disturbance. We contacted...
The premises we're discussing today at Greenspears?
No, because they were
I was asking whether you have ever complained about Greenspears.
Only to the owners and the manager.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Braitman?
Yes, I didn't understand your point about deliveries, because the amendment to condition 25 specifies not before 8 o'clock in the morning, and you've complained before 8 o'clock in the morning. Yes. But it says that delivery should not take place before 8 o'clock in the morning. So that meets your objection, surely?
No, it doesn't. You know, it's noisy, and it's outside people's bedrooms. And, you know, my colleague has said that Hasker Street is quiet. So are Walton Street in the morning, certainly at weekends, and certainly so is Ovington and First Street, and they all run off Walton Street. And they're all quiet residences, certainly at weekends. We like peace and quiet. We can hear the birds. I hate to say this, but being a sad old lady, I'm up at 6:30, and I hear the birds in the morning at 6:30. I don't want to have that disturbed by crates being delivered and chucked around outside the premises.
Well, I'm a sad old lady too, and I think 8 o'clock is absolutely fine. I don't understand your objection.
Well, it is for people who've got small children.
Well, my understanding of small children is that they wake up even earlier than old people.
Chair,
I have to say I have no experience of that, but I am told that they get very disturbed. This is what residents report back to me.
Councillor Evans?
I would like to address Andrea Sharp. Thank you for your presentation. I think, would you agree that the things that you are complaining about or anticipating, that we can work them out with conditions? Would you agree with that?
That we can work them out how?
By working out some kind of a compromise. We're listening to you, and we will bring it up for discussion, but I think they are specific and reasonable, and we can discuss it with the applicant and with you.
I agree, yes.
Okay. And Miss Jenny Mills, I'm really sorry about your illness, and I understand your sensitivity. The problem is here that we haven't had a specific allegation from you. Everything is anticipated, and can you show us why you think we should not grant this application? Because everything is anticipated and based on either another premises or in the future or what could possibly happen. But you've never had a complaint, and we've never had a complaint. And would you like to specify or add anything to what you had to say? Because we don't have anything specific from you.
Thank you. Residents have actually gone across, and we've tried to be good neighbours, and therefore we've gone to the management and we've asked for certain things to be changed. We've gone to them and explained situations. We don't ring up the council as a matter of course. At one point, and I assume this has now been changed, we had to ring what was a joint Fulham and RBKC noise and nuisance team. It took us 14 minutes to get through, and when we got through, we were basically dismissed by the people at that particular point. I'm assuming it's now been taken back into the council. Is that correct?
We'll come on to legal in a minute.
Okay. So at that point, you say there was a complaint based on Jack's, correct?
Oh, based on a number of premises in the street. But I also made a complaint about the sandwich board, which has been put up on the street outside, which takes up space. If it were knocked over by somebody on one of these e-scooters on the pavement onto a resident's foot, given that we are in many cases either elderly or with young children, it could cause irreparable harm.
Right.
So I've raised that one with the management on 2 occasions. There's still a big sandwich board outside.
Right, okay.
And I've also raised the point with the council over the pavement use. and that is on record.
Right.
And I know that other residents have done the same.
And was that based on a specific incident?
It's based on the fact that we are concerned, and we were very concerned at the time of the first 2 lockdowns, that essentially people couldn't go past socially distancing. I mean, we're sitting here socially distanced, but actually in the street the pavement is so narrow that you can't socially distance from people sitting outside on the pavement.
Thank you very much.
Call on legal to ask questions, please.
Hello, sorry, it's not questions, I just wanted to clear up a few things. Noise and nuisance being outsourced, I don't know the answer to that. Mr. Phelan, you aware that noise and nuisance was outsourced? Is it back in-house?
I believe, apologies, I believe it was a by-borough initiative a number of years ago, and I think, I can't confirm for sure that it is now back in-house, so you should be able to get hold of an RBKC noise officer if you go through that means.
So we won't have another 40-minute wait, because at 1 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to ring somebody up, you've been disturbed and you have a 40-minute wait to get through to the council, you know, is not great news.
Of course.
And when the following morning you ring, as Sir Dominic Cadbury did, one of our neighbours, as I did as well, you're told, no, you have to ring at the time. So, you know, there is a sequencing.
Of course. Moving on to a couple of other things, I just wanted to clear up a few things. In terms of planning, my understanding is that any change of use from E1 to E2, any change of use within the same use class does not require planning permission, as it's not considered to be development. Turning to the highways issue, the plan to the premises licence, the red line includes the private forecourt area, that the council would then regard that as part of the on-sales. In terms of highway, you need a highways licence either under section 115E of the Town and Country of the Highways Act, or a pavement licence under the Business and Planning Act. They end in September 22. That is to place tables and chairs on the highway, be it on the publicly maintained section or the privately maintained section. So that is dealt with separately under the highways licence to put the tables and chairs on the highway. And I think in terms of your query about drinking on the forecourt area, the proposed conditions 3 and 4, they restrict it to waiter waitress service and as an ancillary to a meal, so people can't just drink outside. They've got to be seated and they've got to have a table meal as well. I think that's it in relation to the highways planning and licensing points.
Can I please ask a question? You say privately owned forecourt area. Which bit of the area is privately owned?
For the purposes of highways, it doesn't matter ownership. The fact of the matter is the public can pass over the area forecourt in front of the premises, and because the public can pass over it, it's considered to be highway. So there's privately maintainable highway and there's publicly maintainable highway, but pavement licences or tables and chairs licences, they apply to highway. Therefore, a highways licence is required, full stop. It doesn't matter about the ownership. Ownership is a red herring for local government pavement licence purposes, but from what I can see, I believe that the basement vaults are included within the title, but maybe not necessarily the actual topsoil, but that is irrelevant anyway for highways purposes. People often confuse private law and public law, not relevant at all. As long as they've got a pavement licence, that's fine.
Thank you. Could I ask if the applicants have any questions of the objectors?
Chair, yes, and within those questions, some points of clarification as well. I agree with what your learned legal advisor said. Just to give some comfort to Jenny, we are not seeking a land grab of the pavement, as has been explained under the Highways Act. You can only get a prescriptive right if you used it for 20 years. 20 years. You know it better than I do. It's treated for these purposes as highway, and we do have a licence for it. On the subject of highways, the A board that you were talking about, I don't know if you've seen some photographs that we submitted in the additional papers. The A board is within the external seating area and within in the area for which we have the tables and chairs licence. It's not out in the middle of the road. It's within that demise, if that assists. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Jenny, and it's this sort of issue of objections. Have you ever met Alessandro or Emily? Yes. When was that?
When I went in to complain.
Do you remember that?
We have never met, Jenny. I've offered you to come and speak to me back in 2017, 2018, and you never accepted my offer of meeting me. You refused to speak to me.
It's probably like the letter that I never received, notifying me about this particular application.
Emily, it's fine. Well,
I didn't get that either.
We'll just differ on that. Would it help in terms of future communication? Because I did say, I'm not trying to be argumentative, Jenny, but this morning when you wanted to talk about conditions, I did say, come and speak to my clients. They're here, they're happy to have a chat to you, and you didn't want to. So it's very difficult.
Because I've got my stick, and walking is difficult for me at the moment.
With respect, there was a seating area about 2 metres away from us, and I suggested you might want to sit down. Well, I did say that. Being disabled myself, I completely understand your concerns in that respect. Would it help going forward if you had a contact number for either or both of my clients that you could ring up and speak to them directly?
I can walk across the street, as I've done so, with the manager.
That, you'll need to turn off airplane mode.
You couldn't make that up, could you? Would it help to have a telephone number in any event?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
But I mean, I do walk across the street, and I have had a conversation with the manager, because we had a conversation about a number of points.
That was about the A board, wasn't it, Emily?
Yes, and I did very much understand your concern, and if you remember, I did actually take the board inside to ring up the council again to make sure that the measurements were actually the ones that we'd been assessed for and were accepted. And as you know, the pavement is 2.65 centimetres wide, and the board is only 60 centimetres against the wall. So it's leaving at least 2 metres of free space. And I did speak to the council about this, and I had someone actually come to the premises and have a look at the position of it, and hence why we were able to take it out again. Right. So I do remember the conversation. I hope you remember that I did act on that as well.
You did, and thank you for doing so. And also, the current A board is lighter in design, so it's not going to cause as much damage to people, for which we're grateful. But it still stands further out, and it's also essentially, covered now by the licensing of the pavement.
But that's a good thing, isn't it? That by having the licence, and I think the ward councillor, the member of the committee picked that by having these conditions on the licence, including the condition in respect to deliveries, these are enforceable conditions.
That's a positive step, but it still doesn't address a lot of our concerns as residents.
One last point on the objections. Apart from the point about the A board that you were making, the other objections that you're referring the complaints that you're referring to were really, in fact, objections to both the planning and the tables and chairs licence. Is that right?
That's one point. We were concerned about the deliveries, picking up on my friend's comments, because, again, we've been disturbed by that. And we're also very concerned about the fact that this is a forever licence for selling alcohol and supplying alcohol outside.
All right. I have no more questions, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to a discussion on the conditions, which I think all of you have received. Hand over to Councillor Majura.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I'm looking at this document which was circulated by governance yesterday. Obviously this discussion is just an open discussion, everybody can comment, and then the councillors will go away and decide. So I'm looking at number 1. I'm directing most of the questions to the applicant, but please feel free to chip in if you've got a comment, either of you objectors. Are you happy with my revised number 1?
Can I just say, the conditions weren't drafted by me, they were actually drafted very comprehensively by my clients actually, and firstly I'm grateful for your amendments to them. I'm also grateful that they didn't need much amending through to their good hand. Can I say this? We're broadly happy with all of them. Should I just tell you the ones that we would?
Can we go through them one by one, just in case the objectors wants to chip in with anything?
Yes, number 1 is fine.
And please, would you speak into the microphone?
I'm so sorry. Number 1 is agreed.
Number 1, thank you. Number 2, are you okay with my revised number 2?
Yes.
Number 3 and number 4, I didn't have any changes. Objectors, if you've got anything, please just chip in. Number 5, we don't need, as it's a mandatory condition anyway. Number 6, are you okay with my additional G points?
Yes, Chair.
Number 7, I haven't made any amendments to. Number 8 and number 9, no amendments. Number 10, are you okay with the amended wording?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. 11, 12 and 13, I haven't made any amendments to. Number 14, are you happy with my tweaked wording? In the top bit, not the bottom bit.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
May I make a comment on that, please?
Yes, of course.
The main difference on this is that the chairs are to be rendered unusable and or removed. I would like them to be removed, which is what we had requested. I don't know how you make a table and chair unusable. So I have a concern that if they're still out there in some form, they can still be used in some way. So
Can I just interject there? I mean, that's really dealt with under the highways licence. I'm trying not to tread on the highways licence terms. The highways licence deals with the physical putting out of the tables and chairs.
The highways licence,
the pavement licence for the tables and chairs. So you've already got the pavement, you've got the tables and chairs licence, which is until
8 p.m.
September this year. The highways, the pavement licence will tell you whether they need to be removed from the highway or rendered unusable. Rendered unusable usually means stacked on top of each other so people can't sit on them. So I'm having a quick look at your existing pavement licence.
I mean, isn't it, can you not just keep it as it was, which is they are removed?
I don't think it makes a difference, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, it's what's in the highways licence that matters rather than what's on this premises licence. But we can go away and consider that.
What's on the highways licence, whatever it says.
Yeah. Okay. But the councillors can have a think about the wording on that. All right, number 15 and 16, I haven't got any changes. Number 17, in relation to rubbish, the applicants offered not to put rubbish out between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. the following day. I think the objectors have said either 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. and 7. I wonder if you've got any comments.
Could I make a comment on that? We had suggested a condition that the rubbish not be put out after 9 o'clock in the evening, because it is a noisy thing to do. Is there a particular reason why it has to be 11 o'clock?
That was one of the conditions I wanted to discuss with you. I'm not sure whether we need 17 and 18. It may well be that 18 effectively deals with it, but if we're having 17, it probably needs to have the same prefix in 18. I'll explain why in a moment, which is save where in accordance with the council's refuse collections. At the moment we use First Mile, who are an independent contractor. We would like to use the Royal Borough's services, who collect either 9 a.m, 4 p.m, or 11 p.m. Our preference would be that we use the 11 p.m. slot, and sometimes they come late. The reason for our preference to use that late collection slot is A, that's the time that many of the other restaurants do it. B, as Councillor Evans may know, you don't want to keep foodstuffs on the premises overnight. You want to get them out because you get vermin, smells, etc. And if you've got a collection at 4 p.m, that means you've got from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m, you've got 6 hours worth of stuff that needs to sit in the premises overnight. So the condition that's been, and it affects service, you've got bags going in and out of the deli, you don't want that. So our preference would be that both 17 and 18 read 11 p.m. to 8 a.m, or otherwise in accordance with the council's refuse collection. So if they're coming at 11 or shortly after, that would fall within that window of the council's refuse collections. They do Scalini's refuse at the same time.
Thank you. Do you have any further comments?
Sorry,
Jenny?
may I make a point? I understand your need to be flexible. I completely
Please
understand
speak into
that.
the microphone. You can't be heard otherwise. You should in any case be addressing the chair.
I completely understand your need to be flexible, but collections are a very noisy activity. Hasker Street is an extremely quiet street, and the noise of collections at 11 o'clock at night, that is quite late. So our concerns remain. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll leave that to the councillors unless Mr Thomas has got another comment.
Chair, the collections are happening anyway. Unfortunately, I mean nobody likes late night collections, but they are happening anyway. So we would fall within that window. So if 17 and 18 could be amended so they read save where in accordance with the council's collections, then that would be our preference, please.
Can I ask the objectors, please, whether if we did not use the last Royal Borough collection time, whether you would then complain about the noise and the detritus on the street?
So I apologise. I didn't quite get your question. Was it aimed at me?
I think it was aimed at both of us.
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating the question?
There's technology.
Yeah, can you confirm that if we decided not to go with the last collection, that you would not complain about the rubbish left on the street overnight?
I certainly would complain.
Oh,
Yes, I certainly would complain. The reason being is that we have foxes.
Yes.
And they come round, we have rats in the street, which is well known, and we have mice in the street.
Which is why we suggest the last collection rather than an earlier collection.
I understand and take that point. Over Christmas...
So you can't have it both ways?
Well, sorry, I'm talking for Walton Street Residents Association. My colleague is talking about Hasker Street, but it is actually quite critical because we do have rats and mice and foxes.
Yes, everyone has them.
Yes, exactly. It's part of living in London. And therefore it's very important that we get rubbish off the street.
Yes, so it should be the last collection then.
Well, what is the last collection?
11.
11.
Chair, there's one more thing that might assist Jenny. I'm told that First Mile, who we use at the moment, collect from Tasker Street, which is, of course,
Yep.
a very exclusively residential. RBK, your colleagues collect from Walton Street.
Yes. And over the Christmas period, we had rubbish left by the freeholders' tenants, which was attacked by foxes and literally was scattered all over the street. And now there is another notice up saying, please don't leave rubbish out other than at specific times. Now, you know, this isn't relevant to you, but it does bear in mind and have a bearing on why removing rubbish is critical.
Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Evans.
Yes, presumably the other hospitality units on the street are being collected at 11 o'clock. And so the noise is there already. So it makes sense, and perhaps you would be happier with the 11 o'clock if they only put the rubbish out at 11:15 so that we don't get the foxes. And that might be a way of dealing with it. But the 11 o'clock really has been decided by the council for a reason, and that way you don't have the rubbish there all night, as my colleagues mentioned. So perhaps you can control when it goes out so that the street isn't filled with bags. But the 11 o'clock is happening anyway, because you have so many restaurants and bars on the street. Isn't it better to have it all at one time?
With the greatest respect, the other bars at the other end of the street actually have rubbish collection later in the evening, and it therefore disturbs residents. Not necessarily by the council, but by their own private contractors.
Thank you.
Chair, just to throw a spanner in the works, and just for the sake of transparency, we of course, as you'll see from the application, we close at 10 p.m. So we would put our rubbish out at 10 p.m. and let's collect at 11. I appreciate that's a longer window than you might prefer, but that's...
We can put it up at 10:30. Will take us time to clean up.
Well, yeah, but I'm told by Emily, by the time we've cleaned down and staff have left, it's probably more like 10:30 anyway.
Thank you. I think we can move on to the next conditions and the councillors can make a decision on that. 19, no change. 20, are you okay with the additional wording?
Agreed.
Thank you. 21, that would be more fire risk assessment, so I don't think we really need that. 22 is already covered. 23, no change. 24, no change. 25, you offered between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. and I put between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. Are you happy for that to be 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. still, rather than...
Yes, we're happy with the 8
so that will
p.m.
deal with your point.
No. I would want to stick with what it was. No deliveries between 8 in the evening and 8 in the morning. What has been suggested is...
That's what we've just agreed.
I think apart from small deliveries such as eggs and fresh milk. The milkman is a pesky nuisance, I'm sure, but he does deliver early.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
Right. The next bits, I've just kind of commented on some of the objectives and pointed them to where they've been dealt with in conditions. Turning on to 26 to 30, these are just additional conditions which I've added, and I just wondered what the applicant's thoughts were on condition 26.
Yes, we're supportive of the intention of the ethos of the condition. It's difficult, of course, if the residents don't want to have a meeting. So I don't know if it's whether that's implied in the condition, or we could say something as required. But we're happy with the intention of it.
Councillor Evans?
Would you be happy with saying once a year?
Yes. Okay. I think it's twice a month.
Yeah, to change it to once a year.
That would have been my preference, but I didn't wish to be so presumptive.
sorry, Chair.
Do the
We would
objectors-
support that.
Thank you. Do the
Once a
objectors
year.
have any points on this one? Are you happy with that, objectors? Number 26.
Sorry. I'm very happy if you move it to once a year.
Thank
Because
you.
quite frankly, we're having to go and meet so many other people.
Fine. And you're happy, as the applicant, you're happy to notify ward councillors, local residents associations. I don't think there's any particular residents that need to be notified if it's going via the residents associations and ward councillors. Is that okay if I delete?
If it comes to us as residents associations, then we can summon our members and
you.
invite them to attend.
Okay, thank you.
And should we give our residents association contact details to the applicant so that they would know who to contact? It's probably more efficient to go through the residents association.
We have them, but feel free to resend them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 22nd, number 27, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Thank you. 28, are you happy with that?
Yes, save of course there will be customers sitting outside who might be smoking. I know that's not the intention of the condition.
Yeah.
The intention is to stop people going out, standing outside. So yes, we're happy with that.
Thank you. 29
Yes, indeed, but we touched on that earlier.
and 30.
Now, number 30, I don't think this was a condition that we offered with the application. I did check.
These are my conditions.
these are
These are
your
my
conditions.
suggested ones. These notes for.
We do, because we are an eatery, delicatessen, etc. We do sell what we would like. That was almost a euphemism. We would like to, I was going to say we do sell, we would like to sell bottles of wine for you to take away, as the same with any delicatessen. If you go into Ottolenghi, you can buy a bottle of wine and take home for dinner. So we would like to provide that service. We don't think it'll be a big part of it. So the off-sales offer would be either as part of a takeaway meal, so you buy some food and you buy a bottle of wine with it, or possibly you might buy a bottle of wine on your own. We've all been 8, 9 o'clock in the evening and, oh goodness, what we're going to have for dinner. So we would like the ability to do that. So I would just suggest a change in that condition that reads, sales of alcohol for consumption off the premises shall be in sealed containers only.
Which I think is covered off now.
Yeah.
Okay. Objectors, do you have any points to raise on that?
I think sealed containers are fine. We already have that facility through Labacena. We also have that facility through Jeroboam's. Both of them good local businesses which we as residents support.
Okay.
Who don't do organic wines probably, but you know there's a variety of the offer, hence the intention.
Have I covered that already in another condition? I'll just need to double. I might have already covered that in another condition, being in sealed containers. If not, I have. Oh, thank you. Okay, so if it's already covered, then we may not need that, but obviously it's down to the council. So basically, you want to be able to sell bottles of wine, not just with takeaways, and you don't want it restricted to being sold with takeaways. Right, obviously that's for the councillors. Thank you. Condition 20. Are there any other issues that I haven't raised as a condition which we might want to condition, councillors, that have cropped up?
I don't think so. I think we're done.
In that case, I'm done.
I think we've come to the end of the hearing. The committee will retire and come to a conclusion, and a summary decision will be published within 5 days of today's meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Chair, will you be giving the decision orally today? Shall we wait, or it'll be to send out?
I'm sorry, can you start again and speak into the mic?
I think your learned legal advisor has already indicated. I was going to. Should we wait for the oral decision, or you'll just send it out in
We will
time?
send it out.
Yeah, not today.
Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much, and we will be in touch with local residents again, I promise. Thank you very much for your consideration.